Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Bad Psychics podcast. We are talking today about the 2025 major season in golf. I have two idiots with me this time. I'll start off by introducing the one on the right, as he is more familiar to viewers already. I predict that he was the true culprit for moving all of Patrick Reed's balls in the bunkers. It's Coach Jeter. And we also have a special guest. He usually hangs out with another podcast crew, but I predict he will still be talking absolute balls. It's Grimmy. Grimmy, first time, welcome. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you very much. Yes, thank you for having me. I'm ready to talk some absolute nonsense, as you're saying. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Perfect. And Jeter, how are you?
Yeah, all good. Excited to talk about some golf.
Okay, excellent. Before we get into the specifics of this episode, Gurmy, have you seen much of the golf so far this season? Are there any narratives you're picking up on?
I mean, the only narrative that matters to me is whether or not if McIlroy can win the Masters at the minute, or another major entirely. I've seen bits and pieces. I can't say I would sit there religiously and watch like 15 hours of golf over a weekend when it's on, but I do try and catch bits and pieces and keep my ear to the ground, as it were, on what results are happening and who's doing what.
Fair enough. And Jeter, I'm assuming, as a big fan of the Saudi regime, you've been paying more attention to live golf.
Yeah, thanks. I'm just here because I really enjoy the discussion of players getting stroked.
Good. Excellent. Right. Let's switch to our spreadsheet and a whole screen. As you can see, we're going to have two sections to this episode. We're going to start with our potential winner picks for each of the four majors, and then we have a miscellaneous page that we'll breeze through more quickly once that's done. And we're going chronologically, so let's start with the Masters, if we can get our potential picks up there. Okay. Interesting. Do we have any names there twice? We don't. That's gonna make for some interesting discussion. Grimmy, let's start with you. You've just actually, I should say for the viewers' sake, for this, your winner pick, you get big points if they win. Funnily enough, your outsider, you get medium-sized points if they finish in the top 10, and your long shot, you get smaller but still helpful points if they finish in the top 20. Grimmy, you've gone for Oberg to win the Masters, McIlroy as your outsider, and Jeter's favourite player, Patrick Cantlay, as your long shot. Talk me through it.
Yeah, so I thought with Oberg, again, he played really well there last year, and he obviously came second, just short of winning the whole thing, and he's been very consistent with his results throughout the last year. That's why he's still very high in the rankings. So knowing that he plays well there, and he was so close last time, could be his year. McIlroy I put down as my outsider simply because he's been playing well recently, and it kind of seems like the form's there to at least have a top 10. Obviously, would love him to win the thing if he did, but again, there always seems to be something in the way for McIlroy winning it, which is why I've put him as a outsider / top 10 finish. And then long shot, I've put Patrick Cantlay because he always seems to be up there doing things that I don't want him to do, because I'm not the biggest fan of Cantlay, in all honesty. Although Jeter apparently is his biggest fan, so there you go. That's another bit of opposition for you there. But yeah, Cantlay seems to do well in most of the big tournaments, so why not?
That's very fair. I will say, I think most of Jeter's support for Cantley is that
All.
I am also not a fan at all, and he knows it
That's all right,
irritates me.
Yeah.
But yes,
Especially because he plays very well out of nowhere in every single Ryder Cup, and it's really infuriating because he not only wants him to in Ryder and President's Cups in both of them, he loves match play, but he's also just really annoying because he's slow.
yeah.
Yeah.
Susie like double hates him, so it really started with the Ryder Cup like 2 Ryder Cups ago.
Yes.
But yeah, it's just been a running, you know, patty ice.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we will at least know Cantley's hopes pretty soon because he will have to start his first round tomorrow. Jeter, you've gone for Scheffler to win it. You've gone for Justin Thomas as your outsider and Wyndham Clark as your long shot. Talk to me about those.
Yeah, I feel like all three are on decent form right now. Wyndham is debatable, but I mean Scotty, you know, and we know how much Scotty loves Augusta. It's just, you know, he gets to Augusta and he tears it apart. I think it's really stupid to count Scotty out in any tournament, and I just don't feel confident enough early in the season that people are going to be ready to play at Augusta. Obviously, you don't know what the weather's going to be. You don't know what's going to happen. And I think that when trying to predict someone, you know, Augusta's a few weeks away as of recording. You know, I think for me, and this will shine through in all of my picks. I've really kind of, because we don't know what's going to be happening with weather or whether certain conditions will be suitable to certain types of players. I've really tried to lean into who do I think is going to be capable of performing well at the specific venue. Scotty's shown that he loves Augusta, so it feels like a safe pick. JT is playing very, very, very good golf right now. His worst result of the season was Pebble, but he hasn't missed a cut yet this season. He has 2 solo seconds, including this past weekend at Valspar. So I think that, you know, he's playing very well. It seems like he's finally figured out his swing a little bit. He's playing a little bit more loose. And I totally could see him doing well at Augusta. Wyndham was just kind of, I don't know. He really struggled after winning the Open. And I just kind of figured I'd pick someone. I don't know.
Excellent.
Just vibes.
That's fair enough. Right, and then just going through mine, I've gone for Xander Schauffele to win in Augusta. I feel like in his last 6 events there, he's been cut once, but on the other 5 occasions, he's always finished in the top 20. He has looked more than one occasion like he could win the whole thing. For me, it feels like an event that he has to win at some point. And I think it's more likely for him to win Augusta to get one away from his Grand Slam rather than at the Open this year. My outsider, I've gone for Sepp Straka. Probably more of an outsider than you guys outsiders, but I think he's just starting to show what I think a lot of people thought he could do years ago. He's already won on the tour this season at the Amex. He's been pretty consistently getting the job done. And his 3 Masters, he's finished 30th, then 46th, which was a bit of a regression, but 16th last year. It feels like he's still learning the courses, and so especially Augusta, when you come back year after year, I think he's shown that he's learning a bit each time. I don't necessarily know if he can win it quite yet, but I do definitely think that he could feature well. And then my long shot is Thomas Dietrich, another player who's won for the first time this season at Scottsdale. He was so dominant that week, ended up winning by 7 shots in what was a reasonably strong field. The reason I've put him as a long shot is because I think he has the game that could be very suited to Augusta, but he's never played there. It's the only major he's never played before. But I think he played 2 majors last season, and he finished in the top 15 in both of them. He has like some major golf form, and I think, yeah, if he clicks with the course, he has the game to play. So yeah, let's move on to the PGA and see if... Okay, they appeared straight away this time. Interestingly, we've all gone for the same winner.
Yeah, well,
I'll admit, I was between 3 choices. One of them I didn't even put down because it felt cheeky to try and put them down as a long shot. However, the one that I didn't put down, Jeter's put down as his outsider. So let's go through Jeter's first. You've gone McIlroy to win, Max Homa as your outsider, and Akshay Bhatia as your long shot.
yeah. I mean, we can all talk about Rory, but his love affair with Quayle is very well known. He won Wells Fargo there twice, or I guess they're now calling it Truist. Yeah, he loves Quayle. It's a tricky course that requires a certain type of player to win. You know, there's only going to be so many people who can win at a course that has kind of the slopes that it has and that has the greens that it has and requires you to have some length. So with that in mind, that's kind of why I went Rory.
Okay. Going straight from talking about length to why you are a homosexual.
Yep. Thank you for teeing that one up. Tee it high, let it fly, something like that. But yeah, Max Homa is starting to turn around his game. He has been pretty public about having to try and reinvent his swing and not being happy with some of the results that he's had. But he's also someone who's had some success at Quayle. And I just kind of feel like he is a good enough player and has the mental strength to contend at a major. But if it's going to be at a major, I think that you're going to see it at the PGA first, because the PGA is like the least major of the majors. I don't think that that's a hot take, but I think that, you know, rank 1 to 3 however you want. The PGA is number 4 for almost everyone. And, you know, I think that if there's going to be a place that he contends at, it's a course that he succeeded at, and it's a, you know, it's the sort of thing that I think he would succeed quite well. And then for Akshay, he's been in contention a few times already this season. It's another one I think that you're going to have some people who maybe are not your typical contenders at something like the PGA, just because Quayle is what it is. And I think that you could totally see someone like Akshay go out there and play well. He's, you know, his golf game's good, but who knows what everyone's swing is going to look like come May.
Mm-hmm. Very fair. Grammy, you've also gone McIlroy. You've gone for Scheffler as an outsider, which just, yeah, you know, doesn't quite feel right, but I'll allow it. And JT is your long shot.
Yeah, so again, McIlroy kind of needs no real explanation. It's all about the course and how he's been playing. He's not outside the top 20 this season yet. Obviously, that may change by the time we get to the Masters and the PGA. But again, it's his course. He knows what he's doing. He's playing well. It's kind of a tee up for him, really. No pun intended. outsider again, yeah, I went Scotty because I wanted points. So I was like, I again, not knowing the history of who plays well at Quail and not knowing Quail too well myself, I was kind of like, well, go for the easy pick and put Scotty in there because he's probably going to get in the top 10 at most tournaments, especially the bigger ones. And then JT, again, Justin Thomas, like Gita said before, he's been playing really well. He's sort of, well, not sort of, he has turned it around from that sort of really low spell he had a couple of years ago, and he's finding a real vein of form. So, again, I could see all three of those names winning it, but I want points, so that's why I went for those three, basically.
Fair enough. Winning on technicalities and ignoring the spirit of competition, you'll fit in well. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say he'd fit in well on Live Golf.
Anyway, yeah. Also, go on McElroy just because to correct Jeter's stat slightly. He hasn't only won twice at Quail Hollow. He's won 4 times at Quail Hollow.
Oh no.
JT for me, he won the PGA the last time it was at Quail. I'm not necessarily sure whether he's exactly the same player he was then, but that could be a good or a bad thing because I certainly agree he's showing some good signs of form recently. And then for a long shot, I've gone Ricky Fowler because he has won at Quail before. I believe he did reasonably well when it was there as a major as well. And so I feel like if he's ever going to become that, player who turned up for majors like he used to be, 10 years ago or so, it's most likely to be around a course that he already knows and likes. Right, let's move on to the US Open. Oh, okay, that is interesting. Okay, well, Gurmy, I'll start with you, and then I'll see how much our logic for our winner picks agree. You've gone Shane Lowry as your winner, Morikawa as your outsider, and Brooks Koepka as your long shot.
Yeah.
Explain yourself.
So now I'm having to go back and remind myself of what I looked at because there was definitely something that triggered my head and went Shane Lowry.
I know what it is already.
I think it was either he'd played well at the course before or he'd won at the course before.
Played well.
Yeah. So basically I'd looked at like what he'd done on the course previously and he'd done a bunch of good scores. So I was like, well, kind of a natural pick for me. And I really like Shane Lowry as a player and as a character. Again, like Jeter said about Cantley at the Ryder Cup, I love Shane Lowry at the Ryder Cup and in any tournament really. He's a big personality. And I kind of would just like him to win it, to be honest. In terms of outsider, Morikawa, again, he's playing somewhat decently at the minute. So felt like, if he's going to be in contention, it's probably going to be the US Open in my head. And then Brooks Koepka, felt like at some point I should probably mention Live Golf at some point on a golf prediction podcast. So, and Brooks likes the PGA in the US, so we'll stick him in there somewhere. And that was my logic on the outside, long shot, for Brooks.
Fair enough. Yeah, I agree with your Lowry pick. The one thing that worries me about Lowry is he does have a habit of doing exactly what he did the last time the US Open was at Oakmont, which was that he had the lead after 54 holes and he had a little bit of a stinker in the last round and ended up finishing second to Dustin Johnson. I think that Oakmont very much suits him as a course because he he enjoys putting, and he enjoys the little tricky shots when you miss the green. And at Oakmont, those are the difference between shooting a 70 and an 80. It is known as one of the most treacherous courses that the US Open goes to. The time before last when it played there, I think, was when Angel Cabrera won with a score of, I want to say, 5 over. It can be brutal if there are winds, or if the weather conditions are warm enough to bake out the greens. There are 10-foot putts on that course that break 3 times. It's a brutal test. On a similar note, Russell Henley, widely regarded as probably the best putter on the PGA Tour. Ordinarily, I tend to look at him and then go, nah, because he can blow very hot and cold. But he won at Bay Hill a few weeks ago, which is one of the harder tests outside of major golf on the PGA Tour. And he looked very, very impressive, including in some of the areas where he can sometimes struggle. And on a similar note with my long shot, someone who enjoys putting, is a decent ball striker. I think Aaron Rai, he has got to a point where he's not necessarily winning events, but he seems to be keeping his card very consistently by just never really doing that badly. He's making a lot of cuts, he's making a lot of top 10s, top 20s, and I think that's suitable for a long shot. Jita, you've gone Morikawa as your winner, Bryson as your outsider, and Oberg as your long shot.
Yeah, so I had a slightly different approach. I had a similar approach, but different key variable in how I was looking at this event. Oakmont is a brute, and I think Oakmont will be made a lot easier by people who are good off the tee, and especially people who are long off the tee. I tried to go for people that are good ball strikers, but that are especially good in shots gained off the tee. Because Oakmont's got all of these crazy bunkers all the way through all the fairways. It's like they took down a lot of the trees, so the course is a little bit more open. There was a big renovation between the last time that we all saw Oakmont and this current time. They've done a lot of work to the course, and it is a different experience than what... I mean, same experience, but it'll look a little bit different, and it'll play a little bit different. And I just think this was very similar last year at Pinehurst. Pinehurst wasn't the sort of course that you'd go, oh, you need to be a long ball hitter in order to win here. And it turned out that a lot of the people who were contending up near the top were the big hitters, because if you could, to your point, Z, with the greens being what they are, if you're hitting a 9-iron as opposed to a 6-iron into these greens, you're in a much better spot, and you can try and put your, you can make your approaches a little bit more fancy and try and stick yourself close. So I went Colin Morikawa as my winner. I think it would be really interesting to have another person who's won off the career slam. He's playing very good golf this season, and he's been really consistent off the tees. And I think that that's somewhere that he succeeds. Obviously, we know who Bryson is. We know that he loves USGA events. He's done really well across his career in USGA events. And obviously won it last year at Pinehurst. And I think Oberg also was in contention a little bit last year. He's the sort of person who can play it long off the tee, but also has that good tee to green. He's in the top 15 of shots gained off the tees this year. I think that obviously things could change if the conditions are tricky and the greens get really tight, which that the USGA is going to mow things down really short and make things really hard. Putting could be more of a factor. But I think that for me, I looked at this and I think this is going to come down to who can get themselves as close to the green safely as possible consistently, so that they're hitting good approach shots and have more of an opportunity to shoot low. And that was kind of what influenced my 3 picks.
That's fair. I I don't necessarily know that I agree that length helps at Oakmont, because I think the difference between Pinehurst and Oakmont is Pinehurst, the landing areas are very small. With Oakmont, the greens are massive. Like you more have to. You're going to be faced with a lot of very odd 50-foot putts, and so I think Morikawa I can definitely see up there because of his propensity to stick it like right next to it. But I don't necessarily know about Bryson, but we'll see. Right, let's move on to the final of the four majors, the Open. Appeared straight away this time. Delightful. Okay, I will start with mine. I have gone for Scotty Scheffler. I think that it would be very brave for anyone to not predict Scheffler to win one of the majors in the next year. For me, I felt like he doesn't have a particularly special record at Quail. I think it's very, very difficult to sort of keep winning at Augusta. Like he can't win every year, and I just think that Oakmont, well, he'd need to be able to putt well, and as we know, that is not Scheffler's strength. If Scheffler could putt well, then he'd win every event. I think the Open at Royal. I'm drawing a blank all of a sudden.
Rush.
Thank you. I wanted to say Porthcawl, but that's in Wales. Portrush. Yeah, I think that's his best hope. Lowry I've gone with again as an outsider because he won it last time it was there, so perhaps not that big an outsider, but he won last time primarily on the back of shooting a third round 63, and you're not going to shoot a 63 every time you turn up at a major tournament. It was just one of those special, possibly once in a lifetime rounds that good players can have at a major. So I think he can win, but I think he would need to do it more off the back of 4 good scores rather than a mixed bag that included an over par final round. Although a lot of people were over par that day because the weather was stinking. And then finally I've gone with Bobby Mack for my long shot. I just think he's good in links conditions. He's getting steadily more and more features near the top of big events, and I don't see any reason why he couldn't contend and possibly even go on and win it. Grimmy, you are the first of 2 to have gone for McIlroy to win. You've gone for, I assume that's Adam Scott as your outsider, and you've got Lowry as your long shot. Talk me through it.
Yeah, so Rory, I believe, is Portrush his home course? Or is that close to home? Yeah.
It's
yeah. Yeah, so
it's not like the home course, but it's the only one that they play. The last time that they did it was the first time they had anything in Northern Ireland.
Yeah. So again, home bias kind of plays into it. I also think he's going to have a pretty outstanding year overall, McIlroy, anyway, with how he started it. So again, I figured if he's not winning the PGA, I think he definitely wins the Open. That's kind of one of my more confident picks. I don't know why I have confidence. There is no reason behind it. I just have a feeling. That's what I'm going with. So yeah, and I think if he has the disappointment of the Masters, which we've seen can happen, and he has another disappointment at the next 2, then I just feel like he's going to put at least one good weekend together to get himself a trophy at some point. In terms of my outsider, again, not much logic to this. Was looking through the rankings of people who I have seen do fairly decently at the Opens before, and Adam Scott came up a couple of times. So I was like, he tied 10th last year. Let's go for him again. And then long shot for Shane Lowry. Again, expecting a couple of decent majors out of Shane this year, and just felt probably if my prediction of the US Open goes right and he is up there, I think he'll put a good run of form together and do it again at the Open. So yeah, not much logic, but there is some string of logic in there somewhere in the middle of that bowl of spaghetti I like to call logic.
That's fair. I will say it's not one that we can score, and I can't even use it as my bonus because we won't know until the end of his career. But I will go on record and say that if McIlroy doesn't win the PGA at Quail Hollow, I don't think he wins another major in his career. I struggle to have any confidence in him at the best of times. I think he tends to turn up for events that are decent sized, but not, aren't the ones that career resumes are based on, and then seems to have a complete meltdown at some point in majors. I mean, last time the first time it was played at Portrush, he ended up missing the cut because he shot I think 78 on the first day. So, I don't have the faith you do, but someone else who does have the faith you do is Jeter, because you've also gone for McIlroy to win, you've gone for Lowry as your outsider, and you've gone for JT as your long shot.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things that's really tricky is there's only so many people who can contend at majors, and the way that I feel is it's very rare that you see people contending at one and not the other, and you don't really have I feel like it obviously depends course to course. But if someone's going to be on form for a season, they tend to be on form for the entirety of the season. And I didn't want to go roaming around picking a bunch of different names of people that may or may not be on form in the hopes that I get them for one. I'm really kind of, it might be foolish, but putting my eggs in a few baskets of players that I think are really going to have a good season that have shown that they've started well. For me, as we've talked about, Lowry won last time. I don't know that that's enough for him to win again. But, with a course that not many people will have seen, because it's only been played at, it's the first time that they played in was it 2017 when they played it?
I think so.
It was the first time that they'd played it in nearly a decade.
Nearly a century.
So that's what I meant. Sorry. Brain farted there. I meant to say a century. I was thinking 100 years and I said decade. But they hadn't played it in a very, very long time. No, unless you went out there just for, kicks. It's not the sort of place that people would have been all that familiar with. So I think, prior performance matters at least a little bit. Obviously, I think I didn't want to put all of my eggs in that basket because, as you said, he had one really crazy round. I do also think that if Rory is in contention, he will have a home crowd. Rory's becoming one of those players that is known for, being the bridesmaid a little bit and getting left at the altar. He's got a lot of seconds, a lot of thirds, a lot of fourths, especially in these big events, where, Pinehurst is the perfect example, where he was close, he was contending. And I think that it's happened enough that there's a risk that a crowd could start to turn on him because they expect him to choke it away again. And I don't think that would happen playing an Open in Northern Ireland. I don't think that the home crowd would so actively root against one of their own when it's only the second time that they've had it in over 100 years. That being said, it's a risk. You never know. Rory is prone to having his days where he blows up and things just go south. I think Lowry is, I already discussed, and JT, I have a sneaking suspicion that this year is going to be JT's year. he's been playing really good golf for the first time in a while, and he seems to have some confidence back. I also think especially JT kind of excels in that area around the greens. And on links golf, I think that can be important because you're going to have some weird swales and you're going to have, moments where it's like, how do I shape this shot to get it to do what I want to do? And I think that when he has his confidence back, he's one of the better shot makers on the tour. So yeah, that was just kind of how my thought process went.
Yeah, I will say as one very slight factual correction that I believe that Portrush has hosted the Irish Open on the DP Tour since the last time the Open was there. So I do think there might be some European players who are more likely to have played it than their American counterparts, but I'm not even 100% sure on that. I just suspect that's the case. But yeah. Okay, well, those are our picks for the 4 majors winners and potential winners. And we will now switch to our miscellaneous section. Right, we've moved over onto our second section now. These are all our miscellaneous picks for various things, building up to the always chaotic bonus round. So, to begin with, we are going to try and predict the winning score and the cut line at each of the 4 majors. There are big points for getting it bang on, smaller points for being closest. Let's start with the Masters. Okay, interesting. All pretty similar-ish. I'll focus on the highs and the lows in each one, I think. I've gone for 14 under. I think that we've had a few fairly high winning scores recently. There have been more sort of 9s, 10s under, stuff like that. But this is still a course that was it I can't remember if it was Johnson or Rahm was like crushing not so long ago and took apart in -20 for the week. And yeah, I just kind of see us probably getting back towards that way. So yeah, I'm the one that's going for the lowest winning score. Grimmy, you're going highest. You've gone 10 under. What's your thinking?
Again, just looking at the past few years in terms of what the scores had been and sort of picking somewhere in between the range. Again, the Masters is one of those where every now and then, like you said, you'll get a Dustin Johnson scoring 20 under and just absolutely smashing the course, but I just don't see that happening this year. I feel like it's going to be one of the more tougher years we have. I'm hoping it is because I think it's more enjoyable watching it when the golfers are going through a bit of a struggle rather than just acing everything and, like just smashing the ball 400 yards every time and just chipping it in close and getting birdies left, right, and centre. So, yeah, and I'm just hoping for some low scores and people to suffer and a Rory win.
That's fair enough. I mean, Jeter's in the middle, so I don't think you can necessarily add too much there unless...
I've got a bit of my thought,
okay,
and I can explain the process. This is the only one where I could actually look at what the weather's going to be, because it's only 2 weeks away.
Okay.
And I actually think it's going to matter. It's going to be blazing hot. So I think things are going to be dry.
Okay.
And then it's going to start raining on Thursday. So it will have dried out for a while, and then they're going to start to see some rain on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Like, there's a chance that we actually see delays.
Mm-hmm.
We might have it, I'm not actually 100% confident, and this would have been a great bonus pick. I'm not confident we have a cut by the end of Friday. Like, we might see people finishing their second rounds on Saturday from what the weather looks like.
Okay.
Which means that I think that early on, when the course is dry and hard, I was thinking that we might have higher scores for the cut line. Like, I considered going +5 or +6, because I think that, like, there's talk about it being like 85 degrees Fahrenheit, which I don't know what that is in numbers that you guys will understand. But
27, I think.
like, it's going to be hot and sunny, and Augusta has climate controlled greens. They spend a lot of money so that they can control the temperatures of the greens, and conditions can be what they want them to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with some sun, we're going to see some fast greens, and then I think scores will be lower. I think moving day will be really big because the course will soften with the rain. Mm-hmm. And that'll be why I think that, I've ended up in the middle, that I think it's going to be, you really need to be on it on the weekend because conditions will be more scoreable. Obviously, pins will impact that, but that's kind of my prediction. And when I was looking at the weather, that was a lot of what I factored in.
That's fair. I did consider looking at the weather, but I do think of all the majors, like you said, Augusta has the sub-air system under the greens. They can dry wet greens out in an hour if they really want to, and they can, make them moist if they think they're too hard. So I think a lot of the time the course plays how they want them to play it, irrespective of any weather. But you could well be right. You also spoke a bit about your feelings on the cut there. Grimmy and I have both gone +3, which is not that different. Grimmy, was there any particular logic or maths in reaching your...
No, just counted to 3 and picked number 3. So, yeah.
Excellent.
It's the highest number I could get to before I struggled, so yeah, 3 over.
Excellent. Perfect. Right. Well, I mean, yeah, it looks like we're all reasonably in agreement. There's not huge variation. Let's see if that continues with the PGA. Well, there's a lot of Let's start with Jeter. You are saying 7 under. That is a lot. That'll be a lot higher winning score than ours.
Quail's tough. Quail is a really, really, really hard golf course. And I think that there's a very good... My suspicion is that the PGA will know that everyone took a bit of a... But, like, they were the brunt of some jokes with the way that Valhalla played. Valhalla got torn to shreds last year. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people were really disappointed with just how low people were shooting. It's fun to watch the players shoot low from time to time, but that's not what you want at a major, I think, was the overwhelming consensus. Is it's fun to, watch these guys go out to some of the other courses and go 20, 24 under, but that's not the competition of a major. Mm-hmm. And I, in part, factored in that I think the pendulum's going to swing the other way, because it's not like it's USGA conditions, but the PGA might crank the greens a little bit. And Quail is not an easy golf course, especially depending on the weather. And you just don't know what you're going to get in that, when you're in North Carolina that time of year, storms can roll in, and it's just like anything can happen. You might get some winds. Like, I think that for a whole host of reasons, the PGA will be hoping that the winning score is a little bit lower. I also hedged my bets with my cut, because I know that the difference between the cut and the score is very close, which is not common. And I didn't want to put all of my eggs in one basket, so I tried to go with a more typical cut line, in case my prediction on the score didn't come off.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I'm pretty sure there's a 10-shot rule for the cut, so yours would be a physical impossibility but
unless people started going over on Saturday and Sunday.
Okay, yeah, I suppose that's true. Yeah, I went for a different logic. which is that I did consider that Valhalla got taken apart, but of the PGA venues, Valhalla often gets taken apart. It's viewed as one of the more scoreable ones. I don't know they'll be that bothered. My logic was, I think most years, I think of the winning score in like the Wells Fargo / Truist as being about 15, 16 under, somewhere around there. The winning score the last time the PGA was there was 8 under, but I think there's only so much you can do to set it up as a major course again and do it differently. Like, I think a lot of them will have seen it as a major test now, so I've sort of gone that I don't think the scoring will be as low as when it's a regular event, but I think it will be better than it was the last time it was a major. So I've plonked in the middle, and I've gone for a cut line of +3, because it feels to me like, because the PGA has quite a big field, and it obviously has the PGA professionals in it, I think what you can end up with is quite a big variation between the really good scores and the not so good scores, and so yeah, I think it will still be a fairly generous cut line, though there will be people shooting out there. I mean, Grammy, you've gone remarkably similar to mine. Anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, agreed with both your guys' points in terms of things I'd considered. And again, there was 2 things that played in my mind in terms of picking a score. I just have a gut feeling that someone's going to shoot a really like crazy score in the first couple of rounds, and then that's maybe going to be what wins the tournament, and they just keep everyone at arm's length, with how tough that course can be at times.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at the averages in terms of like looking at the scores of recent majors and then when they've played there before, that's kind of where I'd settled in my head, thinking of who I'd pick, like with McIlroy, and how well he drives it, and how maybe that comes into a factor. So yeah, just trying to pick strings of logic again and coming up with a number. So yeah, that's kind of why I went with 12 under for the score, and then 2 over for the cut.
Fair enough. All right. Let's move on to the US Open. Okay. Again, Jeter, you seem to be expecting a pretty torrid time to be had by all this year.
That's fun. That's what we want, right? Some of this might be at least a little bit of projecting, but like I like it when the majors are challenging.
Yeah.
Like I don't, some of it might be maybe I want to have a vested interest in rooting, but like I like watching people, like I'm gonna go out there and scramble for a 78 and hope that that's enough to get me in.
Yep.
And if there's a course that's gonna happen, with the USGA setting up Oakmont, cut line could be +10. Like, straight up cut line could be +10. It's that hard of a course. If the wind is blowing and you get, like, if the course is dry, if they haven't had a lot of weather, which is very possible, like, it's just going to be impossible to play. It'll be a different sort of challenge than what Pinehurst was, because Pinehurst is especially tough with the greens that they had. When those greens are fast, it's just impossible. Oakmont's different, but like the USGA, I'm very confident that if they could have a winning score every tournament or every US Open, somewhere around even par, the team organizing that, the championship team for the USGA would be perfectly happy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I think the only thing I would say, I think after they took quite a lot of heat when there were a couple of tournaments a few years back that were bordering on unfair. I think they've kind of moved away from making even par the target. I think it's almost, they'd more like about 4-5 under, because it builds in a little bit of room that if they get something wrong, it works back to even par, rather than they start at even par, and if they get something wrong, all of a sudden it's 5 over.
Yeah, totally. I know the one that they got a lot of heat from was Shinnecock.
Yes.
So, that was when it really got ugly.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Grimmy, you're on the other end. You've gone for 7 under winning score, not much lower than mine, but still the lowest. Any particular rationale?
Yeah, looking at previous history, and again, just trying to think of how the scores have been recently and what I expect the course difficulty to be like, and yeah, that's kind of what I settled on, and the cut being a bit higher or lower, depending on what your perspective is, than maybe some of the others, just because of the difficulty of the course. I think it'll, like Cheetah says, it could well be 10 over being the score they need to do, or anywhere in between, really. So yeah, expect it to be a tricky one, which will be fun to watch.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think it's worth saying that as recent US Opens go, even with the extensions they've made, Oakmont's still on the shorter side, 7,400 yards, I think. Some of them these days getting over 8,000 yards and just brutal. So I kind of think my answers are based on what I think would be like average weather. If it's not too hot and dry and not too windy and not raining too much, then that's kind of where I'm at. But I think, even Jeter could very easily end up being generous in his assessment. I don't know. Okay, let's move on to the final one, the Open. This is definitely the one where we've got the most variance. Grimmy, do you know something we don't?
Just gut feeling, Z. Just pure gut instinct. I just like, I think where my head was at, and probably not in the right place. It's probably a place to start. Is all the other tournaments aren't gonna have, or I don't expect to have, blitzing scores, and I just feel like if the players are going to turn up and start shooting ridiculous scores, like a 63 or a 62, why not be the Open? So I thought, why not just go for it?
Okay, and that carries through to your cut line as well at even. You don't think it's going to be one player doing that. You think could be a field wide.
Yeah. I feel like if you're having an open score where it's going to be 17 under by the end of the 4 rounds, it seems logical that you're going to have a relatively decent score for the cut.
Okay. Jeter, you are on vastly the other end, at least with the cut.
Yes and no.
You've gone for an 8 over cut and an 11 under winning score.
Yeah, I don't know much about Portrush. I don't know how hard it's going to play. It's really hard right now. I think weather matters a ton on links courses.
Yeah.
If the wind is whipping, it might be one way. If there's no wind, they might be, hitting approach shots like it's a dartboard. And just kind of right at the bullseye or right at triple 20 every time. It's just that's sometimes how these courses can go. I don't know enough about Portrush. I have a feeling that one of its main protections, though, is the wind. Mm-hmm. Because in general, as I've found through, both through golf and just through friendships, it's a lot windier over there than it is here. It's a lot more common to get 30, 40, 50 mile per hour wind days. I'm pretty sure Portrush is, if not on the coast, near the coast.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have all of those impacts, which is why I think that the cut could be quite high. I think +8 is out there, but, I was trying to protect in case it is just nasty weather. But on the flip side, it also does seem like the sort of course that people could go shoot low on. Especially, I wouldn't be surprised if we have someone win by a couple shots. I think that the Masters this year will be pretty close. I think that the PGA will probably be pretty close. And the US Open always seems to be pretty close up at the top. I feel like if there's a tournament where someone's going to go and kind of run away with it a little bit, more often than not, it's either the PGA, but I wasn't going to do that this year with Quail, or it's the Open.
Yeah.
So I think it's very possible that, you and I talk about this a lot when we watch Golf Z. I think that the winning score could be 10 or 11, but the score required to win could be 6.
Yeah.
Where one person's just had a really good round and doesn't really need to think and just kind of cruises in to get their win.
Yeah, I mean, I think, case in point, I'm pretty sure, and I think that must be right, because it was roughly what I based my winning score on, was last time, I think Shane Lowry won by 6 in the end, and I think
it was 5 or 6.
Yeah, my recollection is that he was 15 under, and Tommy Fleetwood was at 9 under, and so I met in the middle and went 12 under. The cut line last time it was there was 1 over. The first 2 days played reasonably kindly. I'd be surprised if it was quite that kind, but I certainly don't view it as one of the nastiest open courses. It's not a Carnoustie, so I think +2 probably there or thereabouts. But yes, that one will be interesting to watch when it comes around, to see which of us has got it right and or horribly wrong. Okay, then we move on to our even more miscellaneous ones now. The first one is the prize cut for 2025. I'm not saying that I called it that, thinking that, the audience could add one letter in. But this is for the person who we think will miss the most cuts in the 4 majors. Each cut they miss, you get some points for. I had decided on my answer for this before this weekend, because I was already planning it. I considered changing it. However, I have decided to stick, because the last time I thought Hovland was coming around was at the PGA last year, when he went really close and then he fell off a cliff again. And so right now I'm not convinced that doesn't happen again. I think even when he's playing at his best, he's frustratingly hit or miss. So I'm going Victor Hovland. I wanted to go for somebody that I felt would probably, even if he ends up winning one, I also reckon he'll miss a couple of cuts, because that just strikes me as the kind of player that he often is. So that's mine. Grimmy, you've gone for Jordan Spieth. Any particular reason?
Just, again, it was kind of, when I was looking at the names and I'm thinking of people who, you'd expect to see higher up on the leaderboards and maybe not having a great time recently. Spieth was kind of the one that stuck out to me that might struggle at a few of these places. Again, we've talked about a couple of the courses being quite tricky, and I just feel like Spieth might be one of those that might miss a few. Obviously, time will tell. Now that I've said that, he'll probably go win the next tournament or win the Masters or something, and then I'll be eating crow on the review version of this podcast. But yeah, there's just something when I watch Spieth where there's just something I'm not quite gelling with like he used to. So yeah, that's why I went for Spieth in the end.
Okay, and Jeter, you've gone for America's sweetheart, Patrick Reed. Talk me through
Did
it.
you know this was my answer when you did your intro?
I didn't. I genuinely didn't. So,
Touche. Yeah, I hate saying this. I think my answer, had he not torn his Achilles, would have been Tiger. That was the sort of profile of player that I was looking for. Someone that would go to these events and that like you don't really hear from otherwise, and that like has some legacy invites or for one reason or another qualifies into these events. And just doesn't really do very well. You know, potentially someone that was like one of the older players, you know. I went poking around and tried to find someone. Unfortunately, in large part due to my procrastination of filling out this list, and because I had work to do today, I didn't have enough time to really find the answer that I wanted. I don't think Patrick Reed has been playing particularly good golf. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's been a little while since he was contending at the level he was. I don't know whether he's exempt into anything other than the Masters. I know he's in the field for the Masters.
yeah, I'm not convinced he is. And I think I know, if that was your logic, I think I can tell you who you should have gone for, who I think probably does still have more invites. Well, that's
Reed did play in the PGA last year. I don't know how or why he was in the PGA, but he did play in the PGA last year.
okay. Well, I think if those were your parameters, you probably should have gone Mickelson, because doesn't
Yeah,
he still
I-
have invites from winning was it the PGA at Kiowa?
Yeah, that like if I'd had enough time, I probably would have landed on that one. But Phil also does seem to find his way to make a cut or two here and there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was trying to look around and trying to find someone that I was like, we'll play in one or two of them, and very likely will not make a cut. I don't know what Patrick Reed is up to nowadays in terms of getting himself into the field for any of the others beyond the Masters. But this was a bit of a flyer out of left field that I was like, you know what, let's see what happens. I know he's in the field for one of them, and I figured he might be able to squeeze his way into a second one, but I don't think that if he is in any of them, that he'll be doing all that well.
Makes absolute sense. And then we move on to bad luck. So this one's an interesting one in that specifically we have to pick someone who makes every cut but doesn't win any of them. The second your player wins or misses a cut, you are disqualified from this round, and then the points go to of the people who survive, who has the lowest overall finishes. I've gone for Oberg. I think he is a very, very good player. I don't think he seems particularly hit or miss. I think most of the time when he plays pretty well. The one thing I'm not sure about is whether he quite yet has that sort of final day bottle to see the job through. I think when he's contended a couple of times, he's fallen a bit short nearer the end, and I don't know that I've seen enough to think that that will change yet. But I did go for somebody that if I'm wrong and he wins, I will be very happy for him. Grimmy, you've gone for Tommy Fleetwood. So I'm presuming you filled this in 2019?
Yeah, probably. If I could read the future in 2019, then maybe that's what I would have gone for. But I feel like he's someone that's... The point was made before about McIlroy, who's always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Like, he's got close a couple of times on some of the majors, but never quite being able to do it. And again, with the PGA Tour events as well, he always seems to find a way of getting close, but never just getting over the line. So, yeah, that's kind of my logic to it. And again, Oberg was definitely one of the ones in my mind, but I felt like he he might well end up winning it. I mean, I picked him for the Masters, so I didn't want to instantly disqualify myself. So I felt like Fleetwood's probably the most likely to make all 4 cuts and be in a decent position for the majority of them. So yeah, and again, going back to your Oberg point of if he ended up winning, I would be quite happy for him as well. So yeah, that's why I went with Tommy.
Fair enough. And then Gita, you've gone for Mathieu Pavon. I blanked on his first name for a second then. I'd had it in my mind the whole time, and then I looked and went, nope, forgotten. Mathieu Pavon. Talk me through it.
Yeah, he's an interesting one here. He had a couple really good results last season, and had a couple stinkers. He's a bit all over the place, but I think that as a player, his game is rounding a little bit. He hasn't had a great start to this year, so it is a bit of a risk. He has, missed 2 cuts pretty blatantly, and not really been in contention for anything thus far. But I don't know, it was just kind of a gut feeling that, like, Pavon's the sort of player that, especially in those big moments, I mean, he had a solo 5th at the Open last year. He won, I want to say, the Farmers last year. Or something like that. So he has the capability of playing at tough courses. And I think that he's a capable player that will be solid. It's a risk that he will miss a cut. I think that it's very possible. But I also think that he's the sort of player that, like, would not surprise me at all if he has, like, a T40, 2 T30s, and then, like, a top 10.
Okay, fair. Right, let's move on to women. So I think the rationale behind this was all of us are supporters of women's sports. We are not necessarily experts on women's golf, but I wanted to make it clear we will be following what's going on as best we can, and we want to show a degree of support. So this is anybody who will win one of the 5 women's majors this season. I have gone for Ataya Titikul. I just think that she's probably the young player who I think is going to win one sooner rather than later. She's 22. She'll probably be around for a fair while. At age 22, she's already won 4 times on tour, including the Tour Championship last season. She's made 22 appearances in majors already in her career, and she's made the cut in 18 of them. She's had 7 top 10s already. She's done basically everything you would expect up to the point of winning a major. So I just think this could well be her year. Grimmy, on the other hand, you've gone for a more experienced player who has been on our radar for a long time in Lydia Ko. Talk me through it.
Yeah, again, not necessarily the biggest watcher of women's golf and don't know too many names, so wanted to kind of go with a more experienced head in terms of this pick. And the other part of it as well is I know Lydia Ko quite well from her being included in the 2K25 game, so I was kind of like, well, there you go, she's in there for a reason, so we'll put her in, and fingers crossed she gets one of the 5.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, I sometimes feel like for someone who is as good as she is, she doesn't have the best record in majors. She's been the world number 1 a lot. She's won 23 events on the LPGA Tour and another 6 on the European Tour, and she's only won 3 majors. Now, don't get me wrong, I know everyone would kill for 3 majors, but I do, if for me, almost similar to a McIlroy, if there is a slight blemish, it's that I sometimes think she should have won a few more big events, but I don't certainly, she won the Women's Open last season, so I don't think it's a bad shout at all. And then Jeter, you've gone for asterisk tally.
Yeah, it's a mad one, but I wanted to do something interesting. I feel like a lot of my picks had been pretty boring. I also figured one of you guys would pick Nelly, and I didn't want to be matching on the boring pick of picking Nelly, because Nelly will win a women's major this year. I'd be floored if she doesn't. But for those who don't know, asterisk tally is I believe now she's 16. She was tied for the low am at the U.S. Open or U.S. Women's Open last year, and has been just tearing apart the junior golf scene. She's like as highly touted as a young golf prospect as the sort of golf prospect that Rory was when Rory broke through, or Tiger was when Tiger broke through. Like, she's just, and that's a lot of expectation to put on the shoulders of a 16-year-old. And maybe this isn't her year, but I think it would be really, really interesting. I know that she'll be playing at the U.S. Open because she's invited back as the low am. And I have to think that as someone who's that exciting, she'll probably be in the field of a few others. And even if she doesn't contend, it would be really cool to sit there and say, hey, look, I predicted this one right. So it's a flyer. It's a risk. Could I have gone for the boring Nelly Korda pick? Yes. Could I have picked Yuka Sasso to, win another one after she did last year? Like, there are some very obvious sitting there right in front of your face picks, but I thought it'd be kind of fun to, it gives me a reason to want to root for someone different, and it would be a heck of a story if it happened.
That's fair, but, as I stated when she burst through last year, anything she wins, it's going to have an asterisk against it, so...
Your humor is unparalleled. We're all so grateful you're here.
I mean, at least I didn't refer to her as a little star.
I'm pretty sure there was an article that came out last year when the U.S. Women's Open was going on that referred to her as like a little star or a rising star or something to that effect. I was like, we got to be doing better than that. Like, we can't use that material at this age. Like, that pun is sitting. It's too much low hanging fruit. I don't know. Yeah. But anyway, I truly do think that she will be an incredible golfer. And, I just looked it up on my other screen while we were sitting here. She's 1, 2, and tied for third in her first 3 events of the year. So, she's playing junior golf, so it's very different. But I also, I don't know. I have a sneaking suspicion that something might happen, and it would be kind of it would be very crazy if it did. But, if I have it on record that I predicted it, that would be pretty cool.
Fair enough. Right, finally, let's move on to what is always the most chaotic part of these episodes, because we have to decide on scoring. We'll go for the bonus round, if we can get those up. Yeah. Good.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hit the button one more time.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I have accidentally predicted everyone to die. We'll start with Jeter, though, because, Jeter's done this before. So I rephrased what he put once he'd explained it to me. There have to be at least 5 hole-in-ones across the 4 majors, because he'd said more than 4. So, the problem with this, and I don't know whether this was your logic at all, you usually go for some quite bold and out there picks in episodes to date. I think 5 hole-in-ones across the 4 majors, I'd say that's more likely than not.
have you looked up at the 3 picks above this bonus? I went for something a little bit more stable to try and get myself some points after making 3 back-to-back-to-back more aggressive picks. This was, I think, look, it's never easy to get an ace at Augusta. It's not all that common. It happens, but like it's not.
There have been years where there's been like 5 or 6 just at Augusta.
And there's years where there's none.
I grant you, but I don't know.
And I don't know. I didn't expect to see many hole-in-ones across this. I set the line where I did because I thought averaging 1 per, maybe 1 per is a little bit low. But like I think when you're playing at some of the hardest courses across the world, aces are not that common.
Yeah, I think maybe Oakmont helps you. I mean, Gurmy, do you have any thoughts before I offer my give Jeter my first offer on point scoring?
No, not really. I mean, again, it's kind of one of those. It's one of those things where, like you're saying about the Masters, where you'll get some years where there is a few, and then you'll get a few years where there's none. And I think when the courses are as tricky as they can be, or they're going to be this year, like we expect, I don't know if there will be a lot of hole-in-ones, to be honest. So, whilst I probably think 5 is on the lower end, it's probably not unfeasible for it to be in or around that, if not a little bit lower.
Okay. Well, GT, you have in the past campaign and that there's not enough rationale for risk and reward in these, so I've started trying to change them a bit and make them more interesting from my perspective. I maintain that I think that is more likely than not, but I will give you a 2-tiered offer and you can pick one. I think if you want to like build a little bit of security into it, I'd say 4 up but 2 down, so that you're not losing to too much. If you'd like the chance to score more points, then I'd offer you a straight 6 up, 6 down, and you can.
I think I'd take 6-6 if Grimmy's good with that. 6-6 feels. I was thinking I wanted to wager something like, 4 or 5 points on this. I think 6-6. I'm willing to lose the 6 if this isn't right to get the 6 up.
Okay, Gurmy, you happy with that offer?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, okay. So we'll go 6 up, 6 down on that one. Gurmy, yours requires a little bit more discussion. You've said that during the major season, 5 big names will rejoin the PGA Tour. Now, I think there's 2 things that we have to ascertain here before we can really make some sort of offer. One is, is this including or is this voided if Liv and the PGA Tour strike a deal? Because if they strike a deal, then absolutely that will happen. But so, do you want that included, which means it would probably be a lower offer, or do you want it voided and it would make it a higher offer? That's the first statement.
I would say if you're going for bonus and you want big points, just go for a void.
Okay, fine.
Let's just go for it.
Excellent.
Why not?
Okay. The second part is, how are we defining a big name? Because that's quite an abstract. I prefer to have something that you can define as, for me, the first thing I could think of is, 5 players who at some point have been ranked in the world's top 10.
Yeah, potentially. Again, the names that were coming to my mind were people like Kepka, DeChambeau, Rom.
Okay.
I don't know if Mickelson would be in there because I don't know if that he would necessarily jump ship straight away. But I think it was more on the basis of there's a lot of talk of these contracts coming up for Liv,
Okay.
and of course there's discussion obviously that like we've mentioned before about the void that PGA and Liv are sort of in the room at the minute and trying to sort things out, but who knows if it's ever going to happen or not. And I think when you've got the likes of Brooks and Bryson trying to sort themselves out, like sort their contract situation out, it's becoming a bit risky for Liv if they don't get it done sooner rather than later.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of my thinking of if you have your Brysons and your Brooks jumping ship and saying, no, we don't want part of Liv anymore, does that then ruin Liv as a spectacle for anybody to be part of in the future?
Yeah.
So I guess, yes, top 10, or maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I guess top 10 is the sort of way to define that. Because I guess those guys those three I've mentioned will have been in the top 10 when they were obviously at the height in the PGA, when they were winning majors and doing the usual shenanigans.
Yeah. I mean, I also count. I was scanning this whilst you were talking. I think I count 13 major winners on their books at the moment. So if you wanted to say, we're defining it as 5 of the major winners, we could do it that way. Do you have a preference? Because it's your bonus. I just want to make sure that we have a clear.
Yeah, I guess it's got to be for the sake of obviously having a decent amount of points on it. I think you couldn't say one. You'd have to be one or the other. You couldn't just have both because then you're casting a pretty big net there. I think with the names I thought of, they've all been major winners. So I'd probably just go with the major winners, and if they jump over, then that's what goes in that tally essentially.
Okay. I think I've counted a 14th as well, but it wasn't somebody of note, so I won't change the score. I think that without there being a deal, I don't know that I think it's that likely, because I think a lot of them have kind of shown that there aren't that many who are able to compete, really, if I'm honest. Like, a lot of them fell off as soon as they joined because they weren't putting the reps in. But
yeah, I think from these standpoints, I don't see this happening, and I'm willing to give Grimmy a pretty big payout.
Okay.
But I also I like your idea of like the 2-tier offer. I think Grimmy, if you're not looking to risk much, if you wanted, I think in my head, if you went like 4 down, I'd probably be thinking like 6 up. Or if you wanted to risk a little bit more, I'd probably go like 8 down, 10 up.
Yeah, I was in a similar place. I was going to say 10 down, 10 up, or 6 up, 3 down. So, like, we're in
the same ballpark.
Yeah, I was being more aggressive with the lack of security, but I mean, I'm happy to meet Jeter in the middle on that and say 10 up, 9 down, or 6 up, 3 down. Are you good with those?
That's fine.
Yeah. So you can choose your offer from those two.
Oh, that's a tricky one because I'm always tempted by a big offer, even though it would be stupid. I'll go 6 up, 3 down.
Okay, you're playing it.
I said before I
respect
may
it.
pick like Scotty Scheffler to get points, so I may as well play the safe game now.
Okay, you're going for win at all costs. Not you're not here to have fun. Right, and then my one. I have said no live players on the podium in any major. We will ignore the fact that Jeter chose to show you all my typo of no live players on the podium. I did mean no live players, so this would be, no top 3, including tied placements for any live player in the 4 majors. I know what I would offer myself, so I am willing to. Well, I will listen to you two have a conflab about what you think it's worth, and I'll possibly negotiate for myself, but we'll see.
I mean, I feel like it seems. I don't know. I feel like I'm looking at it, and it seems relatively likely, but it's still a risk. I think your biggest 2 risks for the majors from Liv, in my opinion at least, are Brooks and Bryson. I think if you went to Vegas and asked them whether one of Brooks or Bryson made it top 3, tied for top 3 in any of the 4 tournaments, more likely than not that it happens, which means that I think Z's taken a decent risk here. I'd probably say that it's not nearly as risky as yours, but I think it's more risky than mine. So I think that the offer should probably be somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right with the Koepka and DeChambeau being the most likely. Like, if I was to pick one person, it's probably Bryson, who's gonna turn up, especially at the maybe the was it the US we were talking about him maybe having a bit of a better go of it, or chance of it, I should say.
Just gonna mention Rahm as well.
You shouldn't have. I just don't think Rahm is all that good. I think he's washed.
Oof. I don't like the guy, but I'd be offended if I were him and I heard that.
It's nothing. It's not. He's a very talented golfer. He's dealt with some really tough injuries. I don't think, and he wouldn't like hearing this either, I don't know that he has the mental grit to grind out another major win, or really even contend. I think the clip that comes to my mind was the clip of him going really viral, screaming at the drones that were a little bit too close to his shot, and he put one way wide on a par 3 or something. Maybe it got wet, but he turned around and cursed out the drone. And I just I don't think that someone who's having that sort of meltdown. You see players throw clubs, and it happens. You're in the heat of the moment, and he's a very talented golfer. Don't get me wrong. I just don't know. Could he go back on the tour and grind out and make cuts? Absolutely. Could he maybe win an event here or there because he's still got that? Sure. Do I think that he's doing that at the major scale? No. My 2 big factors here are Brooks and Bryson, because they love the crowds and they play well in the big moments.
Okay. And Neiman as well. Don't forget Neiman.
Yeah, Neiman is a very good golfer.
Yeah.
And is not we don't need to get into the debate of is he the number 1 player in the world that's been going on Twitter, but he's a very talented golfer. I think if Z wants to be more on the safe side, I would say 5 up, 3 down. If he wanted to be more aggressive, I'd go 8 up, 8 down.
Yeah, I had 5 up in my head. I wasn't sure what the down would be. So yeah, that kind of fits in terms of where I was thinking as well.
Okay. I mean, I can't lie, and I'm not going to needlessly negotiate. You're roughly bang on what I probably would have offered myself, like one out here and there, but I'm not going to go heavy for that. I don't know why. I just feel more confident than I should for something that I do think is less likely than it is probable. Just a gut hunch. So I'll take the 8 up and 8 down. I'm willing to accept that.
Awesome.
So yeah, there we have it. I will be interested to see when we find out who's likely in good standing. I mean, obviously, I think we might get if one of us gets a winner pick early on. I think we might have a good idea, but hopefully it's a close one, and we can keep it tense when I start doing some updates on Twitter for how the scoring's going. At the very least, we will know by the Open's the last one, and that's normally the third weekend in July. So you can expect the review episode to probably be at the back end of July. This will be one of the two golf themed pods for this year. We're also planning on doing a Ryder Cup one closer to the time. But yeah, Jeeta, thank you as always for being here. Grimmy,
Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us. If would you like to give a shout out to your other podcast crew before we go?
Yeah, the Absolute Football podcast we've got. I mean, there's 3 different versions of it: the Premier League, Women's League, and the Football and National League. So yeah, go give that a look and see what you think.
Perfect. Anyway, we have a number of pods coming up soon. I know we've been a bit quiet recently, but just there wasn't much to predict, and now there is going to be some stuff to predict, so you will see more of us over the next month or so. However, for now, as always, until we see you again, be big mystics, not big mistakes. We'll see you all again very soon.